Welcome to the You're Not Invisible After 50 podcast. I'm Kiran Kumar, founder and host of You're Not Invisible After 50. Despite the title, you don't have to be over 50 to listen to this podcast. No matter whether you're 25, 45, or 65, we can all learn lessons from each other to help us build a better, more fulfilled life. Come listen to the inspiring stories of all the phenomenal women over 50 who are kicking ass and making an impact. They are not invisible. I'm not invisible, and neither are you. So, no matter what society says, life doesn't end at 50. In fact, it's just beginning. Welcome to the You're Not Invisible After 50 podcast. I'm Kiran and host of this podcast. We're all about showcasing phenomenal women over 50 who are kicking ass and making impact. You'll get to hear all the inspiring stories why you don't have to be invisible after 50. So sit back and enjoy the wonderful life story from this week's guest. My guest today is Gwendolyn Mitchell. Hi, Gwendolyn.
Hi, Kiran. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so glad we actually have managed to schedule you in and actually be able to record this podcast. So I'm really, really, really happy to get to know all about you. So before we really make a start, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself to our listeners in a one line about who you are.
I am Gwendolyn Mitchell, and I am a champion for tapping into your inner power and living from your heart.
Oh, that sounds exciting. So we're going to get to know a little bit more about that as we move forward into the body of this podcast. So let's talk about where we go next. So we're going to talk about your past, wherever you want to start. Then we'll move into what you're doing currently, the present. What are the trigger points around the 50 mark, if there were any at all, and what the future looks like. And then ending the podcast, of course, with the tips. So let's start.
First of all, Kirian, let me just say that thank you for doing this. I didn't think about my life in terms of specific time milestones, but I had an opportunity to go back and reflect, and also had an opportunity to listen to some of your other guests, and your podcast is fabulous. And your guests were so incredibly honest and vulnerable until it was encouragement to me. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, you made me emotional already. Usually I get emotional right at the end of a podcast, or maybe somewhere in the middle. But I'm starting off really well by getting emotional right at the beginning. But can I just say, Gwendolyn, thank you for that acknowledgement. It means so much to me when people appreciate what we're doing, what everybody else is doing when they come on the podcast, and how honest and vulnerable and how they share everything. So thank you for just saying that. So I totally appreciate it. Really, really do. So let's talk about you now.
Okay, one more thing about you. You're absolutely beautiful, gorgeous. So.
Oh my God. Oh, see, now you're going to really make me cry. I absolutely adore you already. And not because you said I was beautiful, but the thing is, sometimes you like to hear from somebody else when they appreciate you, and vice versa. As I said to you when you came on, was, God, you're a stunning woman. So so let's talk about you. Let's start with the past.
Well, let me just say that I'll just start with a little tiny bit about my childhood. I grew up in a working class family. I'm one of 10 siblings, and my dad did construction work. My mom was a stay-at-home mom until her 9th child was born. And we were poor, but we didn't know it, because there was just a lot of love in the family. And it wasn't until I went to college that I learned all these things about how the world perceived my experience growing up. So that was a kind of a shocking eye-opener. But one of the things about my parents is they were both very religious. My dad had mystical experiences early in life, and they ended up, going into Christian fundamentalist church. And so we grew up with a lot of restrictions, more focus on what we couldn't do as opposed to what we could do. And for a long time, I just felt that it didn't resonate with me on an inner level. And as I got older, I decided to choose another path forward.
And that path forward, what did that look like? What was it about?
It was finding metaphysics, actually. And then later, I became Reiki. Reiki is a holistic healing path. And I was in a lot of emotional pain and suffering. I didn't realize how much, but at the time that I found Reiki, it was also like a game changer for me.
And how old were you with regards to kind of these kind of realizations of this is your past now, this is your kind of move forward into something totally different to what you'd known previously?
I was in my 30s, actually. And shortly after that, my marriage ended. And that was the first major kind of life shakeup. I wasn't happy in the marriage. I grew up in a family that believed in marriage. My parents were married for over 50 years until my dad passed. And we thought that you were supposed to stay in a marriage unless you were being physically abused, you know. And so I stayed in that marriage longer than I would have otherwise. And so that started my life as a single mom. I have 2 adult sons, and I now have 3 grandchildren.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. So that was well, I should say that during that marriage, what kind of began as the slow earthquake was that my husband took a job in another state and we decided to live apart. And it was very painful initially because of the loneliness. But what I recognized after the fact was that the universe had created an opening for me. And it was to give me time to breathe, to focus on myself, and to begin to dive into my spiritual quest.
I think we all know, Gwendolyn, that things happen to us for a reason, and it takes us down a different path. And I've talked about this on this podcast many times. What happens to you leads you to where you really should have been in the first place. It's your journey there, and one just has to accept that. I mean, I was actually talking about this with my daughter, and she actually said to me, Mom, what happened to you? Because I also was in a marriage longer than I should have been. And then once I left that marriage, I've actually become myself, which is really great. It's hi, Kieran, this is me, which wasn't me for a long time. So you're right. You'd have those experiences, and then it gives you the space to actually find yourself. And then when you find yourself, you're on a totally different path.
In fact, people would say to me that I seemed really different when I was with my spouse. And I was in this conditioning that said that the men were the head of the household and they had to sort of be in charge. And so I always felt that I had to shrink to be in that relationship. So just being able to breathe and be able to really find my own footing was really very, very important. I started practicing Reiki, and it was really when the thing blew up. I realized that I was staying in a marriage because I believed also that 2 people could do better than one financially, and that that's not necessarily true, because the year that I left my marriage, I actually made more money as a single person than either of us had made together in any year that we had been together. So that was like breaking open a very limiting belief about abundance, about prosperity, and also coming to the conclusion that it's not a specific thing. It's not a person. It's not a job. It's not a specific thing, but actually God is my supply. The universe is my supply, and it's ultimately abundant, and whatever I need is available to me, simply creating the space to be able to receive it.
I think it's about having the faith and accepting the process and moving with it, and not fighting against it, and seeing where you end up. It's going to be a much more beautiful place than you started.
Absolutely, absolutely. The other thing that I discovered along the way was that um, I used to think it was the person, like this is the reason why I'm not happy.
Mm-hmm.
He is the reason why I'm not happy. But
Mm-hmm.
then, I was in another relationship for a number of years, and I wasn't happy in that relationship either.
Okay.
So one of the expressions that I've heard is that there you go, wherever you go, there you are, something like that, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Which means that the work really had to be done here,
Mm-hmm.
and so I recognize now that um, one of the difficulties for me in relationship was that my heart hadn't flowered enough, that I didn't love myself enough
Mm-hmm.
to be able to actually receive love, to be able to um, give love unconditionally in relationship. And so that has been a major kind of life learning for me as well.
I totally agree with you on that. I think now I feel like I'm at my happiest with myself. And when you get to that point, where you find the total joy in who you are, not on a kind of an egotistical kind of, platform or pedestal. It's more about I'm comfortable with myself. I love who I am. I love who I've become, and being kind of true to yourself and feeling, as you said, Gwendolyn, your heart, because when that sings, then you've arrived.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Excellent. And so, in terms of your work, so is there anything else you want to say about your past? Because that's been totally interesting and informative.
No, it's just been a really great experience, and I consider all these experiences as teachers, and
Mm-hmm.
that like right now I think about them as stories. They don't have
Mm-hmm.
any impact on my mental health or my mental well-being. They're just data. These are
Mm-hmm.
the things that happened, and so it's content, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't have any impact. I feel like I'm in a place of um, awakening, a place of contentment, and a place of gratitude for all of those experiences and all the people that have come in and out of my life.
That's beautiful to hear. Absolutely beautiful to hear. And a beautiful summary of that period of your life. So let's move on to what you're currently doing. So in terms
Yes,
of the present, so
yes.
exciting work that you're doing. So tell our listeners what it is that you're involved with.
Well, I founded a nonprofit organization in 2014 called Moyo Institute. And it's basically our mission is to serve,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And one of the projects that we're involved in right now is a project for African American women who are journeying with cancer. I was listening to one of your guests, by the way, and I was listening to her story. She had been a two-time cancer survivor, and I was thinking, as I listened to her talk about the facts of her life, I thought, wow, we both chose plan B.
Mm-hmm.
but
Absolutely. Yeah.
but I didn't have cancer myself, but my mom did, and one of my sisters, which really inspired me to create this process. So it's a workshop. It's a 2-day, 8-hour workshop for women who are journeying with cancer. It's called Love Letters to Our Bodies, and it's really quite interesting. We do contemplation, meditation, really looking at our self-talk, about how that's changed since diagnosis, and then ultimately the women write love letters to themselves. And there's an audio file on my website of the women actually reading those love letters. And I really love what they had to say. For many women, that disease was the point at which they had their shift, where they became aware of the importance of self and of setting boundaries and taking care of themselves and putting themselves first. So I think it can be inspirational to anyone, and I encourage people to take a look at that. So that is the project that I'm involved with, and we're getting ready to start the new session of workshops beginning in April 29th and 30th. So I'm excited about this. I'm hoping to really make it a national project. And this concept is one that applies to anyone, you know. And the workshop is actually something that can be taught as for prevention of disease, and just really beginning to dive into how we're interacting with life and how we see ourselves in it and what our traumas were and how we've resolved them if we have, and creating space to resolve them now if we haven't.
Can I just say, Gwendolyn, when you mentioned love letters, you can see a tear coming to my eye, right? So when you mention love letters to our bodies, it's so, it's so emotional, because first of all, I think we all deserve to write love letters to ourselves. And I think the whole idea is so beautiful, so beautiful, that it captures your imagination and it captures the heart, and it's actually reflecting on yourself. And that is a good thing. And I just, I think going nationwide with it is just a gift to everybody. But really, it could be more than just with cancer survivors. Is for everyone to write love letters to themselves, because it's something that we do not do. We do not acknowledge the kind of who we are and our, uniqueness in this world.
You're absolutely right. And it's funny because, particularly for women as we age, there's the whole societal concept about what we should be like, what we should look like. And, we've allowed that to come into our consciousness. And so we have to remind ourselves that we're beautiful, we're healthy, we're functioning, we have breath, we're able to move, we have mobility. And it's funny because whenever I start listening to those little voices coming in about changes that are happening in the body, I just make a practice of bringing to mind the image of the goddess of Willendorf. It's a picture of the woman who's like pear-shaped.
Oh, right. Okay.
And so I thought I have to always just keep that in mind and recognize that we're goddesses. It doesn't matter what we look like physically. And, whether or not our hair is gray, and, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. What else are you involved with? Because you've just come back from a retreat in India, which I just want to know about. So I've just been nosy, right?
Yeah, thank you so much. I studied with a teacher in India, and Sri Amma Bhagavan is the teacher's name. And they're a couple. They're actually avatars who are here to bring enlightenment onto the planet. And I just recently realized that, this teacher has been talking to me since I was a kid, that his voice has been in my head, answering my prayers, and it's been pretty amazing. So we're in the process right now of, he's in the process of actually gifting people with enlightenment, because we're at such a critical time in the world with so much going on. The movement is the Golden Age movement, and the objective is to gather 74,000 people to become enlightened, to be enlightened, because this is sort of the critical mass that's needed to shift the consciousness of humanity. And, we have a lot of different ideas about enlightenment, what it means. And basically, the definition that Shyama Bhagavan uses is the absence of mind interference, like to be able to be in the world without all that secondary chatter taking you down the rabbit hole, essentially, and to experience causeless joy and oneness with all of life. And I have to say, like I had my first blessing with this group in 2009. And when I did, my mind went silent for 3 weeks.
Wow.
I literally had thoughts, but no secondary chatter. Just being able to be present for whomever was there, whatever I was doing, the work that I had to do, but none of this stuff that we really get so caught up in, second guessing ourselves, wondering what people are thinking, criticizing someone, how they look, all of that was gone. And it really started me, it moved me in such a powerful way that it really started me on a journey to support this work in whatever way that I can. So that is something else that I'm very much involved in.
Fabulous. Sounds so good. So what about the future then, in terms of all of what you're doing? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so right now I am working really to do everything I can to support this movement. I'm also in the process of contributing to an anthology on Reiki that's being written by one of my friends. And I've been given a fellowship to write a spiritual quest memoir, which I have started. And so hopefully by the end of the year, that will be published. And I have a new website to sort of present all of these things to the world. It's called Gwendolyn-Mitchell.com. And I encourage people to go there and take a look at what's going on as well.
Absolutely, and we'll put the links in our show notes as well, in terms of where they can go and find all the information that you've talked about. So that seems all exciting and also busy as well. So you'll be so busy in terms of doing all of this. Anything else you want to talk about in terms of any future goals? Or
to just be present and really be in life. We move through life not fully experiencing it. And one of the shifts that has occurred for me and that I'm really grateful for is to be able to really experience life, be showing up for whomever is there. Of course, I have my lovely grandchildren that keep me busy. And I want to support women in every way that I can, because I think that we have so much to overcome living in this kind of patriarchal society. But the good news is that it's coming to an end.
Absolutely. And we're looking to shift some of that.
We're bringing it to an end.
So in terms of the tips and bonuses, so 5 tips, Gwendolyn, to anybody who's under 50, from your experience, your wealth of knowledge, what are those 5 tips you would give to somebody?
Well, the first one is to get to know yourself. And you can do that by asking yourself if all of these things that were put into your mind by teachers, parents, elders, society, if they were all empty, what would be left? So the big question is, who am I?
Yeah.
And I invite people to really take that on as a practice, because it will really catalyze this journey, self-discovery. The second one is, don't believe the advertisers.
Okay.
Because all of these things that we believe are going to bring us happiness, the things that we're working so hard to achieve and acquire, it's just nonsense. They're not going to do it. And it's only when we really begin to journey inward that we're able to get to that place of joy and lasting happiness. It's only when our heart begins to flower that we're able to really let love in. So don't believe the advertisers. The third one is to think about what is really important to you and why is it important, to really give some thought to that. And again, it's just recognizing that we're the products of conditioning and programming. And our task is to break free of all of that. So that's the third tip.
Okay.
The fourth one is not to expect anyone else to make you happy. They can't. Most of us are walking around with our begging bowls, wanting to be loved, and the other person has a begging bowl too. They're wanting to be loved. So, I just like, how can these empty bowls do anything for each other? So I want to say that happiness is an inside job, and it's really important to cultivate your inner world. And you'll find not only happiness, but joy, which is more sustained than the momentary pleasure or momentary happiness. And the fifth one would be to have fun.
Wow. I think I love it all. I love it all. I absolutely love it all. You're absolutely right in terms of having, understanding that you don't need stuff, right? Because the joy has to come from within. You need to be satisfied in whatever you do and in every step you take and everything that comes your way. And it comes from within. And that's where you need to get to. I mean, I used to love buying clothes. I used to love buying stuff. Now I'm not bothered about the stuff. I mean, I still want to look nice, but it's not about buying hordes and putting it into the back of my wardrobe anymore. Because it doesn't fill a hole. What has filled my life is finding the joy in myself. And then you're absolutely spot on there. So I totally understand where you're coming from. So what about the 3 tips to anybody who's over 50 now? What would you say to them?
Put yourself at the top of the list. Self-care is very important, and most of us have spent a lifetime caring for other people. And it's our time to really begin to care for ourselves in terms of our physical well-being, both in terms of nourishment, rest, and movement, exercise, and also our mental well-being, being careful about what we let in and surrounding ourselves with those things that are uplifting. The second one is to accept your beautiful, capable self. And, that's every little mark, every little stretch mark. Whatever you look like, just know that you have those experiences that gave those marks to you are part of your life lesson and part of your life teachers. And you have that to be grateful for. The third one is to have curiosity, like what happens oftentimes we feel like, oh, that's the past, or we're over that, or we're over the hill or whatever. And I just want you to know that curiosity will keep you learning. It will keep you young. It will keep you vibrant, and you'll be able to embrace change with, an open mind and see it as both opportunity and a challenge for something new.
Oh my God, you've blown me away, absolutely blown me away, because those tips are so valuable and they're so essential for where we are in the world, what's happening at the moment, but also totally for your own well-being. And I just thank you for those wonderful tips. I would take them away. People need to listen to them again and again and again. Can I just say, Gwendolyn, it's been an absolute pleasure in having you here. I mean, I mean it from the top, bottom of my heart, because it's taken a while for you to get here, to get scheduled. I'll be honest, right? Telling the
Yes,
listeners
it
all
has.
this. But having you here has just been so marvelous. So all I can say is thank you very, very much for being here, sharing those really wonderful parts of your life and the tips.
Thank you. And thank you for putting this out into the world and to give us something to reflect on and to contemplate. And, as I said, I hadn't thought about my life in these terms. So your offering this podcast has really been a gift to me and a gift to all the women who have an opportunity to listen to it. So thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the You Are Not Invisible After 50 podcast. If you want to hear more from some amazing women over 50 who are kicking ass and making impact, then don't forget to subscribe to our podcast available on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Remember to rate, comment, and share with other fabulous women. And together, let's change the narrative that you don't have to be invisible, no matter how old you are. Check out our other services on www.you'renotinvisibleafter50.com and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok. And always remember that life doesn't have to end at 50. In fact, it's just beginning.